Good evening, you are watching ReNEWS in English. I am Sona Tumanyan. The top story of the day, the U.S.-Armenia-Azerbaijan meeting will take place at the White House in a matter of hours. Bilateral meetings will commence at 2:30 p.m. Washington time or 10:30 p.m. Yerevan time. First, the Trump-Pashinyan meeting will be held, followed by a Trump-Aliyev meeting. Each meeting is scheduled to last approximately half an hour. The trilateral meeting is set to begin after midnight. Ahead of the meeting, the 47th President of the United States hastened to give it a historic name and made a post on Truth Social. Trump is eagerly awaiting the meeting and notes that many have tried to end the long-standing war and hostility, but it is his administration that is succeeding.
I look forward to hosting the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev, and the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, at the White House tomorrow for a historic peace summit. These two nations have been at war for many years, resulting in the deaths of thousands of people. Many leaders have tried to end the war with no success until now. Thanks to Trump, my administration has been engaged with both sides for quite some time. Tomorrow, President Aliyev and Prime Minister Pashinyan will join me at the White House for an official peace signing ceremony. The United States will also sign bilateral agreements with both countries to pursue economic opportunities together so we can fully unlock the potential of the South Caucasus region. I'm very proud of these courageous leaders for doing the right thing for the great people of Armenia and Azerbaijan. It will be a historic day for Armenia, Azerbaijan, the United States, and the world. See you then, DJT.
And the Prime Minister of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, also made a post on Facebook today. Let's listen.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
Our correspondent in Washington, Aram Avetisyan, spoke about the upcoming meeting with the former United States Ambassador to Azerbaijan, Richard Kazlarik, who described these actions by Trump as a commercial interest. There is no political presence here, according to him. What consequences this meeting will have on the political map and what impact it will have on Armenia, time will tell. For now, let's watch the report.
Former OSCE Minsk Group co-chair James Warlick, in a conversation with ReOpen Media, positively assesses the U.S.-Armenia-Azerbaijan summit to be held at the White House on August 8. According to the former diplomat, these developments are aimed at changing the geopolitical map of the South Caucasus. Let us recall that, according to leaks in the press, as a result of the summit, the parties will sign a number of important documents in the presence of the U.S. President at the White House, the core of which is the trade and infrastructure project called the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity, or TRIP for short.
And that's a positive step, a very positive step for Armenia, which has, found itself isolated in the region. But in fact, it's good for the entire region.
Former U.S. Ambassador to Azerbaijan, Richard Kazlarik, in a conversation with ReOpen Media, shared his concerns about a number of provisions of this initiative. According to him, Trump's activity in this direction is also conditioned by his personal desire to present himself in the role of a peacemaker against the background of still unsuccessful efforts to quickly resolve the conflict in Ukraine or establish peace in the Middle East.
This is an example of Trump's approach to foreign policy, which is transactional, where it's not business as usual. It's not based on, U.S. economic assistance programs or the presence of U.S. forces.
Without serious state participation and without a reliable security architecture, such projects, in his opinion, do not have a solid foundation. According to Kazlarik, only a commercial presence is not enough for the implementation of such an ambitious project.
Security of that route is important, and it's not, in my humble opinion, it's not enough simply to have a corporation, an American corporation, be responsible for the corridor. There are security threats.
Analysts emphasize the importance of Moscow's and Tehran's reaction to these developments. Ambassador Warlick is confident that the presence of the United States in the region will not bring joy to either Russia or Iran.
There to be a negative reaction, in particular from Moscow, because Moscow has long seen this as their sphere. And as part of the former Soviet Union.
Richard Kazlarik recalls that the president of Iran is planning to visit Armenia soon.
I can't imagine a situation emerging where both Iran and Russia would willingly concede leadership in any kind of mediation follow-on process to the United States without their somehow being involved in.
Speaking about the information on the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group, the former co-chair of the group, Ambassador Warlick, believes that the group has played a positive role, but for its further activity, the consent of all parties is necessary, which is absent. In Ambassador Kauslerych's opinion, the dissolution of the Minsk Group will be a step, undoubtedly, in the direction of Azerbaijan's interests. Baku has been talking about this for a long time, emphasizes Kauslerich. Aram Avatisyan, ReOpen Media, Washington.
Steve Daines, an American Republican senator, has stated that Armenia and Azerbaijan are now on the verge of signing a peace agreement and cooperating to unlock crucial supplies of oil, natural gas, and vital minerals from Central Asia through that corridor, and then on to Europe and the West, bypassing Russia and China. Therefore, according to him, the moment is extremely important. He recalled his meetings with Aliyev and Pashinyan in May, and then added,
There are also the Abraham Accords, which will provide an important dividend not only for the United States but also for the West, and naturally the Russians and Iranians will be displeased.
Reuters, BBC Russian Service, Euronews, Al Jazeera. The international press has put the trilateral meeting under a microscope. According to some publications, the points of the peace treaty were agreed upon by both sides back in March. Another publication asserts that it was easy for Trump to pursue a peace agenda after the secession of Armenia and Azerbaijani military operations. Another media outlet believes that the points of the peace treaty were agreed upon in May, but with reservations. Of course, they are not overlooking the US's goal of having influence in the Caucasus, and let's not forget about the Nobel Prize not yet received, but much coveted. From the World Press, a digest for you.
Reuters emphasizes that the main goal of the meeting is the finalization of the peace agreement. According to the agency, the agreement focuses on such important issues as the demarcation of state borders, the opening of regional transport routes, and in particular the so-called Zangezur corridor. Reuters notes that the peace agreement could transform the South Caucasus into an energy-producing region, which neighbors Russia, Europe, Turkey, and Iran, is crisscrossed by oil and gas pipelines, but is divided by closed borders and a long-standing conflict on ethnic grounds. The BBC's Russian service has written that the planned meeting of Nikol Pashinyan and Ilham Aliyev with Donald Trump in Washington testifies that Russia has lost its role as a mediator between Armenia and Azerbaijan due to the war in Ukraine, and the two countries prefer U.S. mediation. Trump, having failed in the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza, has focused on the Armenian-Azerbaijani issue, where the text of the peace treaty is already prepared. Some experts believe that active U.S. intervention could hinder the peace process. The BBC notes that the parties have reached a compromise on opening the road between Azerbaijan and its exclave of Nakhichevan, and instead of a corridor, it will be called a road and will remain under Armenian control, but it will be managed by an American company. Axios also writes that the agreement signed between Armenia and Azerbaijan provides for the transfer of the corridor to the United States. It is noted that Armenian laws will apply in the corridor and the U.S. will lease it to a consortium for the implementation of infrastructure and construction work. CBS News writes that Armenia is preparing to grant the United States the right to operate and develop the 43-kilometer transit corridor. Azerbaijan also borders Russia and has the potential to transport oil and gas to Ukraine, bypassing Russia. The peace agreement will open roads for goods to the west that bypass Russia and Iran, the news outlet notes. The U.S. will make several gestures of goodwill towards Baku. It will lift restrictions on defense cooperation by repealing the ban on providing direct aid to Azerbaijan, writes Politico. According to the publication, the agreement will disappoint many Armenians, as it apparently lacks specific provisions addressing the displacement of people from the historically Armenian enclave, as well as the issue of prisoners of war. According to the Financial Times, Russia's position in the region has weakened in recent years, which has created an opportunity for the U.S. to assume the role of a peacekeeper. Trump and his team saw an opportunity, and also they opened the door, and Pashinyan and Aliyev were eager for external engagement and leadership that excluded Moscow. Trump has brought the two countries closer to peace than any other figure, writes the FT. The Trump route for international peace and prosperity, which will connect Azerbaijan to Nakhichevan through the territory of Armenia, will expected to include a railway, oil and gas pipelines, as well as fiber optic cable lines, and will allow the movement of goods and people, writes the British newspaper The Guardian. The agreement does not provide for the U.S. to pay for the construction of the transit corridor. Private corporations will do that, the article states. According to an Euronews article, the two countries are demanding the removal of provisions implying territorial claims from each other's constitutions and have sent a joint letter to the OSCE with a request to dissolve the Minsk Group. However, disagreements over the corridor, including objections from Iran and Russia, could derail the process. According to the news outlet, Iran is categorically opposed to solutions that could undermine its border with Armenia, and Russia is opposed to being deprived of control over the corridor in accordance with the 2020 trilateral statement. If the White House meeting is limited only to a memorandum of intent, there may be progress toward the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group, but the issue of the so-called Zangezur corridor will remain unresolved, maintaining the risk of regional tension. Al Jazeera notes that today's reception by Trump testifies to the high-level efforts of the U.S. to establish peace, which could strengthen Washington's influence in the region. The news outlet emphasizes the characterization by Armenia's ruling party of the peace agreement as a maximum goal. The Pashinyan-Trump-Aliyev meeting is also in the headlines of the largest media outlets of France, one of the OSCE Minsk Group co-chair countries, analyzing what results could be achieved. From Le Monde to France 24, they use the phrase historic event, emphasizing that this meeting is a big surprise. The German Marshall Fund, GMFUS, reports that the two countries agreed on a draft text in May, but Azerbaijan speaks only of its pre-signing, while there are important obstacles between the parties, particularly regarding the elimination of territorial claims in their constitutions and withdrawing from the OSCE Minsk Group. The fund notes that the dispute over the corridor and possible political changes related to the 2026 parliamentary elections could become a cause for military escalation. International media warn that even after the signing of the document, its implementation will depend on the political will of the parties and the pressure from external players.
The United Nations is also encouraged by these peacemaking ambitions. Farhan Haq, deputy spokesperson for Secretary General Antonio Guterres, spoke about Guterres' position, stating that he welcomes the trilateral meeting between the President of Azerbaijan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, and Donald Trump. Haq noted that the UN has always supported and encouraged any progress towards the full normalization of relations between Armenia and Azerbaijan. By the way, the Azerbaijani side has already started its meetings. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, has had a meeting with the president of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. According to Baku's news media, Azerbaijan's Minister of Economy, Mikhail Jabarov, and the American company's Vice President, John Erdil, signed a memorandum of cooperation between the Azerbaijani company Soccer and ExxonMobil in their presence. Before the start of the trilateral meeting in the U.S., a brief historical overview from the ReOpen media newsroom. The U.S. joined the Minsk group with France and Russia. Paths to a solution to the problem were emerging. The settlement of the Artsakh issue was closed, but 2 decades later, it would become clear that the Aliyevs had other plans. Let's watch the report.
Washington has been involved in efforts to resolve the Karabakh conflict since the 1990s. In 1994-95, the Minsk Group co-chairmanship format was established, in which the United States took on this role alongside Russia and France. The most noteworthy mediation undertaken by Washington in the past 3 decades was the so-called Key West process. It proposed that Azerbaijan renounce its claims to the territory of the Nagorno-Karabakh Autonomous Oblast and provide a corridor of appropriate width to Armenia, receiving in return the regions adjacent to the NKAO and the opportunity to connect with Nahijevin.
I did not come to Florida, thousands of kilometers away from Armenia, to make propagandistic statements or to teach the co-chairs how to do their job. I came to work constructively on a settlement. That is all. Thank you.
During the difficult negotiations, the Armenian side has consistently held and continues to hold rigid and unconstructive positions. We cannot reach an agreement because the Armenian side's position is based on the occupation of 20% of Azerbaijan's territory.
In 2000, the issue was close to a solution, but at the last moment, Haydar Aliyev refused. 2 decades later, it would become clear that Ilham had persuaded Haydar not to make any compromises with the Armenians. His logic was simple. Projects to transport Azerbaijani oil through Georgia to Turkey and from there to Europe were soon to be launched. Then would come the sale of gas to the West via the same route. In short, Azerbaijan was about to do big business with the West, gaining a lot of money and influence, and therefore there was no point in reaching a settlement with the Armenians at that stage. After Haydar's death, the so-called Prague process began, which eventually culminated in the Madrid Principles and based on them in Kazan. When Serge Sarsin and Ilham Aliyev were very close to a settlement in Russia, Barack Obama personally spoke with both of them, wishing them success. But here too, Ilham refused at the last moment. It was during this period that the well-known 5 statements were made at the level of the leaders of the co-chair countries, which Aliyev tried to get rid of at all costs, as they spoke of the 3 Madrid Principles, including the right to self-determination. In the 2010s, 7 U.S. states recognized the independence of Artsakh: Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Louisiana, Maine, California, Georgia, and Hawaii. Throughout this entire period, Artsakh had a representative in the United States. Over the decades, American co-chairs came and went, but the process always remained one of the agenda items of American foreign policy. Then came 2020, and everything changed. The Minsk Group effectively ceased to exist, and the co-chair countries appointed separate special envoys because they could no longer work together. Ultimately, Nikol Pashinyan accepted European urgings and in 2022 recognized Artsakh as part of Azerbaijan. As a result of all this, American approaches also changed, and the issue is placed in the broader context of purely regional politics. And then came Donald Trump, with his logic of a parade of peace deals and with intentions uniquely his own. Mary Danielian, ReOpen Media.
The spiritual leader of Armenia has also departed for the USA. The Mother See reports that during his one-week visit, His Holiness will have meetings with the diocesan primate, clergy, and benefactors of the Mother See of Holy Echmiadzin to discuss the programs initiated and implemented by the Mother See. Ignoring the deadlines or perhaps emboldened by the Putin-Wittkov meeting new strikes on Ukraine, yesterday is Friday, August 8th, and Russian forces have launched strikes on dozens of Ukrainian regions. The US president's name is also active in the international news feed. He has doubled the reward for the arrest of Venezuelan President Maduro, and the Israeli government has approved the complete occupation of Gaza. David Genjoyan has been following the World News Roundup.
Russian forces are engaged in combat in the village of Torsky in the Donetsk region, pushing Ukrainian units out of the settlement. Last night, air raid sirens sounded in Kyiv and 10 other regions of Ukraine. Explosions rocked Odessa. Artillerymen of the Russian Army's Vostok Group in South Donetsk destroyed Ukrainian strike drone control points. The Russian Ministry of Defense also reports that fighter aircraft struck a temporary deployment point of Ukrainian troops. The Israeli government has approved Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's plan to occupy Gaza, which entails military control while providing humanitarian aid to civilians outside combat zones. Netanyahu has stated that Israel intends to eliminate Hamas, liberate the population of Gaza, and hand over governance to civilian authorities without the participation of Hamas or forces supporting the destruction of Israel. The plan includes the mass evacuation of Gaza City residents to the south by October 7th, as well as the expansion of humanitarian aid with international support. The U.S. Attorney General has announced that Washington has seized over $700 million in assets directly linked to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, whom the U.S. accuses of international drug trafficking. The Trump administration has doubled the reward for Maduro's arrest from $25 million to $50 million. Maduro has been the president of Venezuela for 13 years, despite several assassination attempts and accusations from the U.S., the EU, and a number of Latin American countries that his re-elections are illegitimate. The Lebanese government has approved a U.S. proposal for the disarmament of the Hezbollah movement and the withdrawal of Israeli forces from southern Lebanon, while Hezbollah refuses to disarm, demanding a complete Israeli withdrawal from the country. UN peacekeepers have discovered an extensive network of fortified tunnels in southern Lebanon, including bunkers, weapons, ammunition, and explosive devices. Israel accuses Hezbollah of trying to restore its military potential, while the group has stated that its actions were in support of the Palestinian struggle. David Genjoyan, ReOpen Media.
For more updates, follow us on YouTube, Telegram, Instagram, X, and Facebook. I am Sona Tumanyan. Stay informed with ReNews. Goodbye.